Great, thanks, Nancy. And really happy to also have with us today Julio Bermudez from Optimizely. And Julio's been with the company, with Optimizely since the beginning, and has helped them grow to over 3,000 clients now. If you've seen their blog post with their growth trajectory, it's pretty amazing. So he brings extensive knowledge from Optimizely's platform. He works with several clients that are notable, including CNN, NBC, and Career Builder. And you know, this is a neat privilege because he's going to release and preview some new features of Optimizely in the demo later on. So stick around for that for sure. I'm going to start with some introduction to WiderFunnel and some of the strategies that we're using to get conversion rate improvement. And then we'll switch it over to Julio to talk about and to give a demo of some of the Optimizely advanced features. So first of all, who is WiderFunnel? Some of you we haven't met before, so some of you, of course, we have. But just one slide about who we are. We're a conversion rate optimization agency. That's all we do, is strategy, design, copywriting, and testing for conversion optimization. Landing page optimization is part of that. It's a subset of conversion optimization. And we specialize in advanced testing for complex businesses, as well as high traffic websites and landing pages and full site optimization. And most importantly, of course, are the results. So far, all of our clients have a conversion rate lift between 10% and 750% for every multi-test and retainer client. So we're excited about that. So let's get right into the content. And I want to talk about a problem that we're seeing in the conversion optimization space. And this is research from eConsultancy that shows, first of all, that conversion rate dissatisfaction is growing. People that report being quite or very dissatisfied with their conversion rate are increasing year over year. And at the same time, conversion rate improvement is getting harder. Those who report having had conversion rate improvement actually decreased 5% in a year. And so those two trends side by side represent a problem. Conversion rate improvement is getting harder to realize, and dissatisfaction is growing. People are realizing that their conversion rate needs to improve. Now the good news, what I'm going to talk about today, is conversion optimization actually works. It works, we know it works, if you do it right. There's a lot of people that are doing it wrong and not seeing the results that they need to see. So I'm going to talk to you today about how to get the best results with conversion optimization. We can only speak to the results that we're seeing, of course. And so just at a high level, the average conversion rate lift that we're seeing for WiderFunnel clients is 23% for e-commerce and 49% for lead gen. So clearly, conversion optimization works. I'm going to show you how it works. Now, what I'm going to show you today are frameworks that you can use to analyze your website and get significant conversion rate lift. Now, first of all, it works in all industries. So whether you're in B2B or B2C, the reason I'm showing you this, these are some of the clients that WiderFunnel is working with. And the frameworks are tested across industries. And what's important is that people are people, regardless of whether they're in a B2B company, you know, buying toner for their business, or they're sitting in their basement buying socks for Christmas. They respond to web offers and value proposition in the same way. And that's why these frameworks that we're going to talk about today work across industries. So I'm going to talk about two things. One is how to get results, and I believe that's probably why most of you are here today, how to get conversion rate lift. And the second thing is how to get insights. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, how to get conversion rate lift is great. I mean, no one can argue that conversion rate lift is awesome. I mean, you know, how cute and cuddly and warm and fuzzy can you get? You know, look at that. I mean, it's awesome. Until you see the power of marketing insights, and then you know what awesome really is. So that's why I talk about both, how to get results and insights. And the great thing is that getting marketing insights from your conversion optimization actually leads to getting better results as well. So they're tied together. And so I'm going to talk about both, how to do that across your marketing campaigns. Now, first of all, I want to correct some misconceptions, because part of the problem and the reason that people are having difficulty getting conversion rate lift is, again, they're doing it wrong. And there are some pervasive myths in conversion optimization that are causing that problem. So first of all, there's a myth that best practices advice gives the best results. Conversion optimization is not about just consulting or taking some experts or supposed experts or gurus' opinions on what works best. What we find is that there are a lot of people out there in the industry spreading misinformation and really polluting the space with advice that's just not tested. So when you think about it, really, there's a lot of people giving advice, but conversion optimization has really only been widely available for companies in the last few years, just a handful of years. But a lot of this advice has been around much longer than that. So where was this originated, right? A lot of it just comes from people's best guesses or supposed common sense or you know, the advice of other experts like designers and original copywriters. But if it's not actually tested, it's not, I mean, where's it from? It's not solid advice, is it? I'll give you an example. I can show you blog posts that say you should always use a green button because a green button on a website works best. I can also show you a blog post that says, no, red beats green. We did an A/B test and red beats green every time. You should always use red buttons. Well, there's another blog post that says you should always use orange buttons. So obviously they can't all be correct, right? I mean, somebody's wrong. Well, the fact is they're all wrong in some contexts, and they're all right in other contexts. Here's what I mean. Here's an example of just some of the buttons that WiderFunnel has tested and won for our clients on various landing pages and websites. Now, of course, what you'll see is that the variety is much more important than any similarities. And in fact, if you look at this one down on the bottom, this pink one, that one was actually an animated flash button with sparklers and streamers and arrows flashing, and for most of your businesses, I would never recommend even testing a button like that. You know, it would be hideous and a serious mistake. But for that particular audience on that landing page, we were targeting 13-year-old girls, and it worked brilliantly. It was beautiful. So you can't just take one test result or a couple test results and extrapolate them across the known universe of landing pages. So that's an example of problems with taking best tips and tricks and advice as you know, the gospel truth of conversion optimization. There's another myth, and that is that multivariate testing gives the best results. And this can really be generalized for a wide swath of the industry that's looking at technology solely as the answer to your conversion rate. The false promise of multivariate testing and a lot of other tools, a lot of automated behavioral segmentation and big data tools are giving you a false promise that you can put any weak ideas into the tool and it will come out with brilliant results. And that's just not the case. The fact is, strategy, planning, and intelligence gives better results every time than just relying on a tool alone to do the heavy lifting. Now, a lot of times, tools, of course, are necessary, and we love tools, and that's why we're presenting with Optimizely today. We're partners with Optimizely. We're actually the first authorized consultant agency for Optimizely. Happy to be there, and the tool is fantastic, and it makes life a lot easier. But when some tool vendors will tell you that all of these additional fancy features are what's actually going to give the results, so that they can justify exorbitant fees for these tools, you know, as a silver bullet, and that's just not the case, and it doesn't work. What we find is often simple A/B testing can give the 90% solution. 90% of the results can come from the basic features. As Avinash says, you know, you should spend 10% on tools and 90% on people. And of course, Avinash is such a rock star in the space, you don't have to use his last name. He knows what he's talking about. So that's another myth. And here's another one that, you know, maybe is basic for a lot of you, because a lot of you are probably Optimizely customers. You're already using the tool or you know about it. But there's still a lot of people that I meet in the conference circuit that say, yeah, we've done a lot of testing over the years. And I say, okay, great. You know, what tool are you using and how do you structure your tests? And I'm just curious how that works. And what they're doing is saying, well, we have our old page, right? And then we swapped over to a new one. And it turned out that our conversion rate went up. So clearly that new page was performing better than the old one. But what they don't realize is that they've embedded learning into their company that is misleading. Because what they're not taking into account are all of the other effects that are influencing that type of a test. And that's called a pre and post test, or a before and after test, where you're just swapping out, making a cut. And that used to be the only way to run testing. But with tools like Optimizely nowadays that are so easy to use, you don't have to use that prehistoric type of testing, you can do proper testing where you're actually going to get results that are meaningful using controlled testing with the same traffic being randomly directed to different variations and control the statistical significance. So that pre and post testing actually is meaningless and can do even worse and give you misleading learning. One more myth I want to talk about, and that is pervasive, especially in some usability circles, is that usability testing is a substitute for proper controlled testing, conversion optimization. That's just not the case. Usability testing alone suffers from some well-documented research showing its misleading results and flaws. The Hawthorne effect, for example, and this self-selection bias, and you know, people that are in usability tests are under a different set of circumstances than your visitors in their homes or on the road visiting your websites. They just want to complete an action to get their reward. They can't tell you what their actual motivation is in a usability test. So those are a bunch of problems that we see and myths of conversion optimization. Now, what I want to do is talk about what real conversion optimization is and then show you some examples of how we're getting results. So real conversion optimization, I believe, is the intersection of three things. Number one is persuasion marketing, where the conversion strategist understands how to create motivation in the visitor and give your prospect the proper communication of your value proposition to give them a motivation to take an action. That's an important component, but also experience design. Once you've given them the motivation, how do you facilitate that action? And that's what the experience design is all about. How do you create an attractive, welcoming environment that has no barriers in the conversion funnel and allows them to flow all the way through? And then the third component is often neglected, and that's the scientific method, where we test the hypotheses within those other two areas. And what we find is that people that come from a marketing background often think that conversion optimization is all about persuasion. They might only look at one component of the conversion triad here. Others that come from usability might think it's all about experience design. They think it's all about user testing and usability and user interface and all those rules that apply to user experiences. And then a lot of people are just ignoring the scientific method completely. So it's important to take a well-rounded perspective on all three components and include them all in your conversion optimization strategy. All right, so I promised you I'd talk about two things. One is how to get results, and I'm going to show you how to get results right now, show you an example. So the most important part about getting results is creating powerful hypotheses. Again, it's not about the tools and technology alone. It's about creating powerful hypotheses that you ask of your prospects. And what I'm going to show you is the framework that we use now to analyze web pages and create those hypotheses. Some of you may have seen this before. It's called the LIFT model. And it's gotten quite popular in conversion optimization circles. It's being taught at universities and conversion optimization courses. But essentially, this is a high-level view of the 6 conversion factors in the LIFT model. Now, the first, I'm going to just go over this very briefly and then show you an example. But the first component is the value proposition. And that's, there's a lot of definitions of value proposition. We like to think of it as simply an equation that goes on in the visitor's mind between the perceived costs and perceived benefits of taking an action. And if that equation is positive, they'll have a positive value proposition and they'll have motivation to take action. So that value proposition really is the core of your potential conversion rate. If it's strong, you have a lot of elasticity, so your conversion rate has the potential to be increased quite a bit. So there are other factors then that support or detract from the value proposition. Next is the relevance of the presentation. That includes the relevance to the source media, the relevance to the visitor's needs, and how you present relevance is important to maximize your conversion rate. Next is clarity, and that includes clarity of the eye flow, clarity of the copywriting, clarity of the imagery, and the call to action. All of those aspects we can test with to improve conversion rates. And then factors that reduce conversions include anxiety, which is any uncertainty in the visitor's mind of taking the action, of proceeding through the funnel. For example, an interesting point in anxiety, there's a lot of these supposed gurus and experts that will tell you that if you've got McAfee symbols or Norton hacker safe symbols, if you're paying for those things, you should put them as prominently on your website as possible. You should put them in your header. You should put them everywhere to create trust. Well, we've actually tested that and found that you can actually hurt your sales by making those symbols too prominent. You can actually create anxiety by answering questions that the shopper is not asking in the wrong place. So you should test that. Distraction is anything that redirects attention from the primary message or the primary call to action. And then finally, urgency is, why should I act now, right? Why should I make this decision and transaction before I flip to the other tab in my browser to see a competitor? So that's the lift model that we use, and there's a lot more detail on that. You can Google WiderFunnel lift to find out more. But what I'm going to show you now is an example of how we use that and how you can use it as well in your business to create better tests. So here's a landing page that SAP came to us with. Now, SAP is a well-known company. They've got some of the world's leading business intelligence software. This was a landing page from their paid search, and they needed to improve their conversion rates to generate leads for software downloads. So they came to us and said, okay, WiderFunnel, we need to improve this conversion rate, but there are some strict restrictions that you need to understand. So first of all, you can't change that big black header. You can't change the type treatment. You can't change the product image or the call to action or the feature list or the size of the type or the placement of some of the elements, and you can't change the form. So okay, fine. I mean, we'll see what we can do, right? I mean, that's what we're here for. So we accepted the challenge and ran this landing page through our typical process of analyzing it with the lift model. So here's the page and some of the factors that we identified. We saw that the headline was a value proposition problem. It was missing the most powerful word in the English language, free. And free happened to be in their AdWords. So that was a really important, one of the first ones we noticed. There was clarity issue, the large dark header overpowering the page. There was relevance, the headline doesn't mirror the source media, some distraction. There was a mention of pricing. It says powerful reporting priced for everyone. And that word pricing now creates an unanswered question in the visitor's mind. It creates distraction. It's a mental distraction because it's not answered on this page. There's clarity. The call to action link fails the 6-foot legibility test. There's some more anxiety, value proposition, clarity, and issues throughout the page. These are just a few of the factors that we identified. But what's important here to understand is the structure of creating hypotheses that solve conversion problems, not just randomly testing with a designer, throwing someone in a room and saying, here, come up with a bunch of variations and we'll test them out. It's about actually identifying what are the problems that prospects may be running into and then solving for those. So then the next step in the process is to take those weaknesses and convert them into strengths. And that strength becomes a hypothesis. So, for example, if the headline is missing the word free as a value proposition point, the corresponding hypothesis is that adding a strong value proposition headline using the word free will lift the software download conversion rate, and all the way through that list of lift points. And now the art of the strategist comes in here, where we take this long list of hypotheses and analyze to find out which ones should we cluster together to create the swing for the fences variations, and which ones should we isolate to generate those marketing insights. Now I'm going to show you a couple variations that we tested for SAP and for interest, and what we'll do is actually get you to vote on which one you think won. So here are two variations. Variation A was a two-step process where we started by, of course, this was a variable cluster against the control, where we made a bunch of changes. We changed the iFlow, most importantly, by positioning the product image on the left with a strong value proposition headline, new value proposition copy, and the button to download now. Now, of course, the button is more prominent than what we had on the control page, and as students of graphic designs manuals, we pored over that to find the chink in the armor that allowed us to get this nice orange button on there. And so that was the two-step process. Variation B was, so actually, I'm sorry, on variation A, when you click the download button, then you, of course, went to the download form. Maybe get that to show up here. Having some computer hang-up issues here. But variation B was a single step where we took that form and actually integrated it straight onto the landing page with the same button at the bottom. So now the question for you is, which one won? Was it variation A with the two-step process or variation B with the single step? So go ahead and vote on which one you think won, and I will try and get my computer to start working again. All right, sorry, we're just having a small technical issue here that I will be resolved in a moment. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the poll results. Let's take a look at what you voted for. All right, so the majority of you voted for two-step, which is cool. And then let's open up the results. Yeah, all right, let's take a look at what actually happened. There we go. All right, so if you voted for A, give yourself a raise. You have increased your lead gen conversion rate by 32.5%. And so that's awesome. And not only that, but SAP saw, they tracked sales all the way through and found 154% ROI on the project. But in addition, they were able to take the learning from the test and leverage it across the organization. So this is what we're getting at with step 2 here. So we talked about results, 32.5% conversion rate. Now think about this for a moment. Those are free leads, right? So they've already paid for visitors to get to this landing page. Now they've got 32% more people actually filling out the form and becoming a lead for their sales team. Got 154% lift, and plus the insights were used for other landing pages and other products to increase it. And that's what we're driving at now, is the second step is how to get insights in addition to results. So generating insights is where the results analysis part really comes into. So there's two components, planning the test and analyzing the test, to move from just looking at what worked to why it worked. So it's beyond, you know, which button works to why did that work. What is the characteristic of your unique audience and context that is the driver, the potential driver behind that. And then we can move to building other tests that leverage that learning and produce even better results. So here's another example I'm going to show you. In this case, to really illustrate the insights, this was for Hair Club, and this was a landing page from their paid search that had been tested and tuned, but they'd hit a plateau. They needed more than just simple tuning and tweaking. They really needed to generate more lead gens in the consumer market here from their landing pages. So here were 3 that were tested. Variation A was what we call the emotive approach. And this is, these were rotating images on the left of, of beautiful women, you're on the beach. I mean, the kind of aspirational lifestyle that you would expect from having a full head of hair, right? And variation B was a static approach where we replaced that rotating imagery with static descriptions, text about the services. And the video on the right was the same in both examples. Variation C moved the needle even further towards static context, static copy, and removed the video and had testimonials on the right and a little more value proposition on the left-hand side. So now the question is, which one of these 3 had the highest sales? Was it the A side of the emotive spectrum, B in between, or C on the static side? So go ahead and vote on which one you think had the highest lead gen conversion rate? So is it A, emotive, or B, static content, or C, no video and total static content? So let's take a look at the results. At what was voted. Wow. Serious votes for C. This is really interesting. And let's take a look at what actually won. All right. So it turns out that B actually won with a 20% lift in conversion rate. So that was, unfortunately, the one that was voted for least in the group. So, and what was actually interesting too, in addition to that, is that variation C actually reduced sales or lead gen against variation A and against the control by 18%. So now, in addition to this, there's more to the story than just the conversion rate lift. There's a marketing insight here potentially, where when you compare these two variations, where we're looking at emotive imagery versus static content, it turns out that perhaps the bouncing beautiful women story is not what people are looking for. That perhaps the traditional approach of marketing sex is not what the visitors are responding to. Perhaps they're just looking for a solution to the problem. So there's a myth in conversion optimization and in marketing in general that sex sells, right? I mean, this is like the foundational principle of marketing, and that's why marketing jobs are so, everyone wants to work in marketing. But the reality is, on your landing pages on your website, perhaps that doesn't work. What we actually find is that sex is distracting. And in fact, unless that's what you're selling, you may want to take a different approach. So that's a potential insight that at Hair Club and other companies can continue to learn on and leverage and test. So more importantly, because we've developed a system that plans to discover the reasons behind results like this, we continuously uncover principles like this. And so can you with an ongoing system of generating insights. All right, so let's take a look at one more example for wineexpress.com. This was a landing page where they have millions of daily emails to their opt-in list. Again, their landing page was highly optimized, but they'd hit a plateau. They needed more e-commerce revenue in this case. So in this case, we were testing an e-commerce product page template site-wide that was only shown for the wine of the day. So every day they had a wine of the day special that had 99-cent shipping. And here were two of the variations that we tested where we were isolating the call to action area. So variation A had an R price, the discounted price, and an add to cart button. Variation B had a large on sale now added. The sale price was larger and a larger add to cart button. So which one won? Let's vote to take a look at what you think. So what was it? Was it variation A with the smaller call to action and price, or variation B with the large on sale now and large add to cart button? So I see some of you voting. Got a majority voting here, and some of you are a little bit shy. That's okay. You may feel burned by the last results. That's understandable. That's why we test, right? Okay, so is it A, small call to action, or B, large on sale add to cart? Let's take a look at what you voted for. And wow, 77% voted for variation B. So obviously you've been reading your, your best practices conversion optimization playbooks and blog posts. But it turns out that A won with a 5% conversion rate lift. And you might be thinking, wait, first of all, why did A win? That's bizarre, but also 5%, that's not a big deal. Well, that's why we don't just look at conversion rate. We want to look at revenue, because it turned out that A actually had a 41% increase in revenue per visitor. So it's not just conversion rate. The revenue was dramatically higher. Now here's a potential marketing insight, and there's more to this story. We tested quite a few variations and found a pattern. For their particular audience, they are highly sophisticated, wine connoisseurs, high household income, educated, and what turns out that the more we emphasized design elements that smelled of marketing, the more it turned them away. And in fact, in this case, the more we emphasized this wine of the day video with the sommelier's tasting notes, the more cases they sold. That's a marketing insight that they can now leverage and test across their website throughout other scenarios. Okay, so like I said earlier, the good news is that conversion optimization works if you do it right. Okay, so we've talked about a framework that you can use, the lift model to analyze your pages, a system we've hinted at a system for how to get insights, and it's really about analyzing your results to aim for marketing insights. I want to share a number with you, 200%. That number represents what a structured testing process is worth. This is about the testing process, the strategic process that you're using. eConsultancy did a study and of companies that were doing conversion optimization, and what they found was those companies that said they have a structured approach to improving their conversion rates were twice as likely to also report large, not just about having the tools in place to run tests, but it's also about having a structured system in place to create strategic tests and have a results insights warehouse that you can store these insights and build upon them and create even more powerful hypotheses. You know, we're often finding with WiderFunnel that we're getting better results on our second, third, and fourth rounds of tests for our clients because we're building on the actual insights and findings from their particular industry and which of the other learnings that we can apply that actually work for those situations. So I'm going to leave you with one more question. I've asked you a whole bunch of questions to vote on. I'm going to leave you with one more, and that is, what are you waiting for? And you know, every presentation nowadays has to have a cat, right? So here's the obligatory cat slide, and I also, as promised, have a special announcement. And before we get into the demo with Julio, and the special announcement is for a free custom landing page evaluation. So we have 10 time slots available for this webinar. I was able to open up on the schedule, and these do go fast. So it's scheduled on a first come, first served basis. I often offer these at our conference presentations, but they fill up really fast. So if you want to take advantage of that, email hello@widerfunnel.com. Tell us the URL of the web page you'd like evaluated. And if you've got a minimum 30,000 unique visitors per month, you can qualify and have get your free page. And it doesn't just have to be a landing page. It can be a template page on your website. And we can help you figure out the best way to increase your conversion rate from that. All right, so it's demo time. Now I'm going to switch over presenters to Julio, and he's going to show you some step-by-step with Optimizely and some new feature. There's a new feature or two. He's said that he's going to preview and show you some advanced testing, which will be pretty cool to see.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chris. And we're really excited to share with you guys some of our new advanced features here that we have with Optimizely. And what I'm going to be able to do is actually show you guys some of these new features that we're coming out with, as well as the fact that I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to actually create some tests. And something to speak towards what Chris was going on about in terms of having a structured approach. That's very, very important. And what we find with Optimizely is that Optimizely has dramatically lowered that barrier to test, but that does not mean that you do not need to have a structured approach to testing. So that's why here at Optimizely we were really excited at the chance to be part of this webinar. So definitely want to start off with a thank you, Chris. So here's what we're going to go over today. We're not going to do two simple things. We're going to actually talk a little bit more about some advanced features. We're going to go into how we can create some pretty powerful tests using both our visual editor as well as some code examples. I'm going to show off our brand new feature, and this is something that no one in the world has seen yet, and that is our multi-page experiments, and I'll get into exactly what that means in just a moment. I'm going to show targeting. Of course, when you're showing tests to people, it's not just important to make sure that you're showing the average best thing to everyone, but you want to start getting more and more personalized with your content, much more targeted with your content, to really push past those plateaus and gather data that you can leverage across your organization. And then lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about our API and some JavaScript goals that we can come up with. And again, the idea here was that a lot of you out there are already testing and understand simple A/B tests. And what we want to do is to give you a sneak peek into some new features as well as some more advanced use cases so that you could go right to the site or log into Optimizely right now and start making a dramatic difference on your online revenue. So really quickly, just as an overview in terms of what happens with Optimizely, is that any time we use our visual editor and we start playing around with tools, what's going to happen is Optimizely is going to automatically generate code for you. So whether you're familiar with JavaScript or you're not familiar with JavaScript, as a business user, I can go in and I can create some really, really powerful tests, and Optimizely is going to do all the heavy lifting for me. And if we want to take a look at the code, especially this would be some good color for you before I actually go in and show you some examples where I am going to be manipulating code. It's important to kind of get an idea, or at least be able to read sort of what's going on underneath the hood. And one thing that we're very proud of is the fact that when people come to us, they actually learn a little bit of JavaScript, and it's not because they have to; it's almost because they want to, because they get really into the conversion funnels, they get really into optimization rates, and of course, we're always here to support you in your endeavors with lifting those conversion rates. And so part of what's happening here is when you take a look at that code is that we generate this little selector, and that selector basically is telling your page what element we want to touch. And I'm going to show you exactly what this means in a moment. And then from there, we're going to tell it to do something. And so for the technical folk out there, that's something that should put to rest some of the fears that you may have, that when you have this visual editor, you're going to be playing things around and who knows what's actually going on underneath the hood. We are actually extremely transparent about what's going on underneath the hood. And then lastly, I'm going to show you, or just speak on our content delivery method. Because of the fact that we are wanting to optimize your page, it doesn't mean that we're not extremely mindful of things like load times and all of those other very, very important metrics that can affect conversion rate even without it being visible. There's studies out there that show that load time can actually affect conversion rates. In fact, Amazon is well known for publishing studies that are talking about how every millisecond they take off, they increase the conversion rates by X amount. So we're definitely very, very mindful about how we are serving up our content. So if I know slides, you've seen a lot of them, so let's get right into the tool. Let's have some fun here. And I've got our homepage loaded up. And so you can actually, at any point in time, if you've never been to Optimizely.com, just go ahead and go to Optimizely, find your page, and for example, I can just go to Marketo.com, great client of ours, copy that, paste it in, and then click Test It Out. And when you click Test It Out, the page is going to load up inside of the Optimizely editor. And so this is Optimizely. As you can see here, I have the Marketo's homepage loaded up inside. And as I move my mouse around, I have these blue boxes, and this lets me know that I have an element that I can make a change to. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make a change to this button that says See a Demo. Right now, this says See a Demo, and I wanted to actually increase my conversion rate on this. So I'm just going to start off with a very simple copy change. And in order to do that with Optimizely, it could not be easier. By clicking on Edit Element, I can move over to Edit Hyperlink, and it can actually change what it says. And instead of See a Demo, I'm going to say 5-min demo. Great. And you can see here that as I'm typing it out, my site is actually changing dynamically. Cool. So now I've done that, and that's all well and great. And you say, okay, well, that's a really simple test. What else can you show me? Well, there's a couple other caveats here. One is that See a Demo actually appears many times on this page. And so this can pose a problem. You don't want to go in every single time and click on each button and make a change, especially if you have the button all over the place. So what Optimizely allows you to do is actually go in, click on Edit Code, and start to make some changes. So again, we're talking about that selector. And as you see here, as I mouse over this selector, it actually highlights that element. And what I can do is I can now take away the unique aspect of it and just simply target the class. And so you can see here that now I'm selecting the .demo, and I'm changing the text to 5-min demo. if I, oops, I actually got to apply that there. If I click apply, now you can see not only is this 5-min demo changed, but so is the other ones down here. Oh, I forgot to, there we go. I got excited there. All right, awesome. So when I click apply here, you can see here that now we've actually changed all of the demos to say 5-min demo. So again, with Optimizely, what we're allowing you to do is to basically take a concept, go through ideation, and rapidly go through the execution of those ideas. And so hopefully, the only bottleneck is going to be in the testing plans and not the actual tool itself. And that's where someone like WiderFunnel really plays a big part into your testing plans over the year, because when you have a tool that will allow you to run tests this quickly, you need to have better and better ideas. You need to have that structured approach. And so as you can see, what we've done now is we've changed a call to action, and now we're going to try to measure the click-through rate on that button, because we want to see if that change will actually directly lead to more people clicking on that. So if I actually click on this, what I can do is I can set up a goal, and I can say I want to create a new click goal. I want to see how many people are clicking on that. And so I'm going to call this demo call to action clicks. And you can see here we even get a preview of the element in its original state, and what I'm tracking is clicks. And once I hit save here, I've actually what I've actually done here. Sorry. Save here. Getting a little bit of issues here. Sorry that. Get back on my browser there. That was my fault. Okay, so as you see here, once we save that goal and we have that saved within Optimizely, what we're able to do now is actually listen in with a simple click of the button to find out whether or not the change we've made is going to affect our click-through rate. And so this is on the first page, and one of the things I really wanted to show you was the ability for Optimizely to actually test all the way down the funnel. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you, this is a brand new feature. This is something that we have not really shown anybody yet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a multi-page experiment. So before, you could do this, but it would take a lot of coding. And now what we've done is we've made it very, very simple and very, very visual in nature. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually turn this into a multi-page experiment, click apply, and now you can see here we have page number 1, and then we can add a page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the funnel. I'm going to say, okay, what happens when I click on 5-min demo? And when I click on this button, I'm going to go to the next page here. And once it loads up here, I'm going to go ahead and take the URL of this next page. Right? And now I'm going to go back. I'm going to add a page. So I'm going to take this URL, and I'm going to call this form page, because on this page we have a form. Great. And so once this loads up inside the editor, what I'm going to be able to do is actually track goals. I'm going to be able to make changes, and basically what I'm going to be able to do is try to increase the conversion rate down the entire funnel here. So while this is taking a second to load up, one thing that's really important to think about is the fact that when you make a change in your home page and you get that increase in click-through rate, that's really only half the battle. The next important piece is to actually be able to go through that funnel and make sure that people are making all the way, and so that they're completing either a purchase, a form submission, any of the other metrics or KPIs that you have set up on the site, or any other way that you're actually deriving revenue from your online presence. You're going to want to be able to make sure that you're able to go all the way through that funnel and have it work. And it looks like here that my internet is slowed down quite a bit, so I'm having a little bit of issue loading this page here. So let me really quickly reload this here. Sorry about that. But as we're taking a look at this, again, it's very, very important to consider things down the funnel. And one way you can also do that is actually by going and adding a goal that maybe is not based on clicking on that element. Maybe what it's based on is whether or not you make it to that page. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly create a goal that says, hey, you know what? I want to make sure that someone has completed my form and has made it all the way down to my thank you page, my success page. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this, like completed form as my goal name. And what I'm going to track from a URL standpoint is I'm going to track my thank you page. And so for this example, since we're using Marketo, we're going to make it nice and easy. We say marketo.com/thank you. And now once I save this, what I'd be able to do is match up whether or not the change I made on my first page is going to link all the way to whether or not someone makes it all the way through my form submission page. So once I save that, basically what I'm able to do now, this type of test can be very powerful, and it can take only a couple of minutes to actually set up with Optimizely, and will allow you to get those insights and allow you to use all the things that you're learning from Chris in terms of a structured approach and understanding the Kaizen model, the lift model. We want you to come into Optimizely with this great knowledge and start taking advantage of it as fast as possible. Like other tools that are out there on the market that really require a ton of coding and require you to go through the release cycle of the website and to do all these complex things. With Optimizely, what we're able to do is actually empower you to create tests extremely quickly. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our dashboard, and I'm going to actually show you a couple examples of some tests that are pretty cool. And one of the tests that I'm going to show you is actually ran by a client of ours, a great client of ours, hotwire.com. And what they've done is they've actually created a test that's extremely complex. So rather than just doing the simple copy changes like I had shown you, where you go in and you click and you change headline, or maybe you find an image and you swap out that image, what they did was they actually took this to the next level. They actually completely changed around what their hero banner was. So you can see here that this is actually a live interactive map that they added in using Optimizely. So as you move your mouse around, it actually will give you different marketing messages based on the location. And what's really cool is that their original page was actually a little carousel. So with Optimizely, not only can you make these simple copy changes by going to some text and editing it and changing what it says right on the fly, we also will allow you to do very complex tests where maybe what you're doing is changing out entire functionality. So for example, moving from a carousel to a map that's completely interactive. And in order to do this, it did take some code, and it did take some pretty cool things. So for the more technically advanced people out there, one of the cool things that they did and that Optimizely allows you to do is to actually introduce completely new style sheets. So what they did is they went into the global CSS portion here, and they added a style sheet. And you can see here that they basically went in and dumped an entire style sheet that they built and said, okay, I want this variation to have access to these assets. And then they went and they created this within Optimizely by actually using our JavaScript. And so you can see that even what they've done, and again, this is for a little bit more technically inclined folks, you can see what they've even done is actually completely added a function. So not only is Optimizely allow you to go in and visually make changes and really be hands-on from a business user's perspective, but when you do leverage the ability to write code with it, you really can create these extremely powerful tests that will have far-reaching implications for your online revenue. Now, lastly, the last test that I wanted to show you is actually something also a little bit more technical. And this actually has to do with the ability to go off of data that you may have in your warehouse, in your data warehouse. So what Viator, again, a great client of ours, what they did is they had a list of items that if someone purchased a particular item, what they wanted is to activate an experiment based on that. So maybe for you, what that is purchasing, a high-price item. Maybe you have a very high-margin item, and what you want to do is to, maybe say, okay, thank you for your purchase, and give them some sort of coupon code or something, or test out coupon codes to get them back. Or maybe you have a low-margin item, and what you want to do is you want to run a test on something that's low margin and say, hey, you know what? For every product that is low margin, I want to go ahead and show them an experiment where we try different upsell items. And so what they did was they went off of, and again, if you take a look at, oops, not here. If you take a look at what they did from a JavaScript perspective, what they were looking for was actually some complex things within the JavaScripts And what they were able to do was actually go off of this exact product here. So when someone purchased this exact product, what they did is they used this experiment to activate another experiment that would then start showing different test offers. So again, it doesn't matter whether or not you want to do something very simple, like simply changing out text, or swapping out an image. Optimizely allows you to actually go in and make very complex changes and really affect how your entire funnel may work. So I know that's a pretty quick overview of Optimizely. We definitely recommend you guys coming to our site, and we have a special offer for you. And if you sign up before December 17th, we will give you 15% off of our silver or gold plan for your entire customer life. So that's a huge offer that we want to get people out there and get them coming to our site. And December 17th may sound arbitrary, but that's my birthday. So it's a special shout out from me to you guys who are attending this webinar, and a special thank you to Chris for inviting us here. And we're super excited to get you, and have you guys dive into Optimizely as fast as you can and really use those structured approaches that WiderFunnel is really great at creating. So without further ado, we should probably open this up to questions here. We've got a couple minutes left. And again, please definitely feel free to shoot them in.
Awesome. That's a great new feature, Julio. I love that. Tracking. Oh, sorry. We're just looking at the questions here. Nancy's saying that we've got a couple questions coming in, but yeah, that's great to keep tests consistent all the way through the funnel, and we certainly, take advantage of that. And because one of the things that we certainly see when we're running tests is that maintaining consistency is really important, right? So being able to do that easily and optimizely is will make life a lot easier. So, question. And we have a few minutes left here. There's a question here about how many tests can you run with Optimizely at the same time? Julio, maybe you want to start with that one?
Yeah. You can actually run unlimited tests at the exact same time using Optimizely. So we actually don't have any technical limitation in terms of how many simultaneous tests you can run. It really just becomes a strategy question at the end of the day in terms of where you want to run those tests. Are any tests going to conflict with each other? Is it better to do a multivariate test versus multiple tests on one page? But just to give you an example, one of our largest clients, Orbitz, they are actually running 200 simultaneous tests.
Okay. There's another question here. Now, I mean, of course, one of the questions on that running how many tests can you run is so technically, then it sounds like you can run an unlimited number of tests. When you also want to consider from a strategy point of view, looking at the influence tests might have on each other as well. So hopefully, if you're running a lot of different tests, you're running them with as little overlap between the target segments as possible. So I guess what would be great is if you're running different tests on different segments or on different landing pages and different parts of the site as well that might not be influencing each other as much, or else using the tool or the feature that you talked about to maintain consistency throughout that experience. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you really want to make sure that things are not going to be interacting with each other. And just to give you a little bit of color there on Orbitz and their 200 tests, they literally have an optimization team of almost 100 people. So they have a very structured approach, and they're touching on a lot of the same concepts that you were showing in the presentation.
Yeah, for sure. And to run that many tests, you're going to have some really good central coordination to make sure that that tests aren't stepping on each other's toes, so to speak. Okay, there's a question here about, can you discuss long page versus short page landing pages? That's from Patina. And yeah, well, I guess I can make a comment on that. So there's a lot of discussion about short page versus long page landing pages, and in some cases, both can work well. And so that's certainly a good test hypothesis. Often a lot especially in consumer landing pages, we're testing the spectrum of content to find out how much is needed. And there's a case study actually, I think, on our website from Pluralize that shows an example of that, where, in some cases a minimalist approach to minimize distraction, but in other cases more information is needed, especially if you're going for a direct purchase sale on that landing page. Sometimes for lead gen you can get away with a little bit less and then rely on your salespeople to close the deal. But that's worth testing, and there is no, I'm not going to go down on one side or the other to say, yeah, you should always use long pages or always use short pages, because in context, both can work very well. And I know that's, the worst answer you can give, it depends, but that's, in that case, certainly the case. Let's see. What is the opposite of lift? The question by Ben. I don't know if that was a joke or, or a real question, but good one, Ben. Is another question from John, is JavaScript poor for SEO? Julio, do you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, that's definitely a great question. So one thing about Optimizely is that the way that we are working is we're not actually manipulating the underlying code. So your hard code on your page is not going to change, which means that we're not actually going to affect SEO for the positive or for the negative. So it's kind of like a good and bad, right? So meaning that when we're changing things on the page, like let's say I change some wording or I change some copy on it. What's happening is that the client's browser is actually just rendering that change. So the page itself is still saying the same thing. So when like a Google bot comes, they actually just view the original page. And so while Google bots, and other bots, can activate JavaScript and they can view whether or not, we're making a change, we actually exclude bots by default, as well as the fact that, to tell you the truth, we actually have a very strong connection with Google. Dan and Pete, our two co-founders, are actually former Google product managers. Dan was a product manager for Chrome, as well as the fact that actually Google was a very, very large investor in our last round of funding that happened. So a little bit of disclosure there. So again, we're highly aware of what's going on in the SEO world, and we're not affecting it whatsoever. So again, if you do want a change to affect SEO, meaning you're trying to increase relevance based on keywords, you're going to actually have to hard code this, and you can't just use our tool to do that.
Right, great. And there's another question here, and actually, I'll second that. We've been at WiderFunnel Google authorized consultants since 2007, and in every conversation we've had with Google, they support testing and have said that they'll never penalize a page for having tests running, as long as they're being run properly with proper testing tools, and they're always looking for websites to improve through conversion optimization. And in fact, they have asked us to give them any examples that we come across of sites that have been penalized by JavaScript tests. We've never seen one, and they've told us that they haven't seen any evidence of that either. So certainly a strategy that they support.
Yeah, we also have, just really quickly, also if you go to support.optimize.com, we actually have an entire article written about it, and we actually have a response from Google on there where they talk about their stance.
All right, so there's another follow-up by Ben. He said, seriously, what's the term to use when the test produces negative results? Okay, so that was a serious question, Ben. I'll answer your question. The opposite of lift is inconclusive. And in fact, I have a blog post coming out in a week, I think, that's going to talk about inconclusive results and why we love inconclusive results. So stay tuned for that. But the reality is there is no losing test, because when you find a test result from a test that doesn't work, maybe it's inconclusive or you've got some losing variations, you never have to, first of all, hard code those in, right? You just keep the control. But more importantly, you can generate insights. So look at the results and what you isolate in your test plan to find out why one didn't win or why it's inconclusive and not making lift, and learning from that, and then testing based on those insights to actually produce lift. So you could say that there is no opposite to lift because it doesn't exist. When you have an inconclusive or a losing test, it's learning, and then you just move on from there. So I hope that answers your question, Ben. I didn't mean to make light of it because it is a serious issue, but there really is no opposite to lift when it comes to conversion optimization. There's also another question here about the multi-page testing from Amber. I was curious about multi-page feature in Optimizely. Would you set up separate goals for each page, or would they be global goals that are applied to both pages? So you can speak to that.
Yeah. So we actually will allow you to do both. So for example, let's say that you have like any funnel that you have. Ultimately, there's going to be some sort of conversion event at the very end. That's really going to matter the most, right? So if you're thinking like a simple e-commerce website, it's like, okay, you don't have this funnel, but at the very end, I want them to check out and finish the checkout process. So we will allow you to have a goal that can be defined by either a custom JavaScript event that happens at the very end, meaning someone's finished that purchase and their credit card has gone through, and you're going to say, okay, credit card has gone through, everything's okay. We can also base that on the simple thank you page. So like the goal that I started to create based on the thank you page is also a way to sort of get that overarching goal included into your experiment. And then as well as the fact that you can actually create separate goals on each page. So maybe there's multiple calls to actions, or maybe it's the same call to action on 2 pages, and you want to make sure that people are continuing to click on that, or you're wanting to check click-through rate on those call to actions. You can actually measure them individually. So from a technical standpoint, Optimizely allows you basically to measure almost any interaction possible. And then from a strategic standpoint, it just depends on what is your ultimate goal, what type of data are you looking to derive, and then that will actually tell you the best way to implement the test. But yeah, I mean, from our tool in terms of multi-page experiments, you will be able to set both isolated page goals as well as sort of a global goal for the entire test.
Awesome. Another question here about that. Is it possible to set up multi-page funnels to split test? So it sounds like he's talking about, that's from Nathan, talking about an alternate path test.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we definitely can allow you to do that. In fact, one of our great clients, Create Barrel, that's what they do. They try completely different paths quite a bit of times. So they'll have one path that maybe has like 5 pages, they'll have another path that combines all those pages into modal windows, and they really are constantly reaching for different ways to optimize their conversion funnels. And so yeah, to make a long story short, basically what we allow you to do is to set off a different path by either actually having a page that simply redirects you to another page. So when someone lands on, like, let's say your home page, they can be redirected right then to homepage A or homepage B, and both those can have different paths associated with it. Or what you could do is you can actually change the functionality of a link. So maybe you just just on your homepage, when someone clicks on that link, sometimes it has the underlying code will send them down path A. Sometimes that underlying code will be down path B, and visually the user won't be able to tell a difference. They'll just think they're going down a path.
Right. Cool. One more question here from Robert. He looks like it's for us, but can answer for Optimizely too. How do you charge a typical client as an agency? Example, by volume, by experiment, etc. So, Robert, we have typically for most of our clients, we're working on a subscription model. It's a retainer model where we work on a year strategy to run full service execution of tests, starting with an analysis of your web analytics and heuristic analysis and understanding the company, through to running a series of ongoing tests throughout the most important areas of the website after prioritizing where to test and focus attention. And so that works best on a subscription model so that we can really run any type of test as well as voice of customer and all of the other qualitative stuff to get the best results. So that's how we work as an agency, and it's closely aligned with how Optimizely builds as well on a subscription model. So I know the question was about the agency side, but that's how Optimizely works as well.
Yeah, we're based on a subscription model that basically we take into account your unique visitors that you have going through your site, and as well as the fact that we also have feature differentiation. So it's really a combination of sort of what you need in terms of traffic levels and what type of features and how advanced your tests are going to be. And then from there, yeah, it's a monthly retainer. And, we have the flexibility of doing a month-to-month, and we also give you discounts for doing year-long agreements. So we're pretty flexible on that standpoint.
Right, and when companies that work with Optimizely work with us as well, they can either set up their own account in Optimizely or work, we can run tests through our Optimizely account. Either way works out just fine for all of us. So whatever makes the most sense depending on your traffic levels and volume and strategy and who you'd like to have control of that.
Exactly.
So we're past the top of the hour here, so I'm mindful of time, and we have recorded the session, and there are some other questions that we'll try and follow up. We'll certainly follow up individually with you if you've asked questions and we haven't gotten to them, and hopefully we'll also be able to do some blog posts to answer some of these other questions and for everyone. So thanks again for all of you for attending. Thanks Julio and Optimizely for co-presenting the webinar. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Totally. It was great. Thanks a lot, everybody. And Chris, thanks for inviting us over.